I've been looking at a lot online about people in discussion of the recent chapters, and most of the stuff concerns like people like Wed, some of the other or I guess general members of Fire and Flames, because I can't say like other members. It's like really there's only a handful, and then the same thing with the Erasion Sex. That seems to be where a lot of people's interest in right now is just because these are new characters that are kind of like all in the mix of things. Obviously, E.N.D and Faris, the main cast, are all kind of scattered out doing things. But something I don't think a lot of people have really been in discussion of is Faris in concept, because I think Faris is a very strange character when you think about her in the verse of like where she's at and what you'd expect, but like how she's so far presented herself. And what I mean by that is, first off, she shows up and she's like, she smells like Acnologia. She feels like Acnologia. She's got an Acnologia's arm integrated her body. For some reason, it looks mechanical. We still don't really understand that. There's no direct explanation. Who knows? Maybe we'll get maybe during the fight she'll explain it. But you'd expect at that point, okay, is she going to be Dragon Slayer themed, dragon themed? Okay, no, she's talking about it, but more towards black magic. And then she makes Aetherius. And on top of that, okay, is she a follower of Zeref? Doesn't seem so, because when you compare essentially like the differences of characters in the verse, and this is something that I really wanted to talk about as well in a video right after this, but this one I want to kind of focus on the topic, and then I'll kind of include it so that way if people want to watch this and then watch that one, or watch that one and then watch this, I'll bring up watching that other video, this video rather, in that video before I get mixed up. Anyway, the differences between each of the villain groups that we've seen that would kind of be adjacent to the Erasion Sex. And what I mean by that is, you don't look at, say, Zeref's Spriggan, because it's completely different structure. The Spriggan are all kind of different in their own ways. It's more of a big culling of the elite over a landscape rather than like a result of the character's direct ability, or like, recruiting off of a theme that aligns with whatever the character is, or it's like a character, all of his minions fit whatever the character's colors and whatever their power set is, whatever. I'm sure a lot of people have immediately thought of like 10 characters that said this. I don't think I need to explain myself on it. But when you look at, say, because first off, we have the Erasion Seis. Okay, the Erasion Seis are extremely talented wizards who just seem to have pretty powerful magic, and you can't say them as in category specifically of having anything beyond that, because as far as we know, the only one that has anything special, I'm trying to think, because Angel doesn't have her keys anymore, and I personally would say celestial spirit magic would be considered almost like lost magic now, relatively, but that's kind of like in definition of where it would be at, sort of. But she would, at the time of, wouldn't qualify, because after the point of like when all of the people in the Zentopia arc were getting slaughtered in the Starry Sky arc, but stuff with the Zentopian church where all these celestial spirit wizards were getting slaughtered, because realistically the only like big celestial spirit wizards around anymore are Lucy, and then the closest after that is Yukino, because you can still have decent celestial spirit wizards, but like all of the gold keys and the black key are all accounted for. Well, not Aquarius, but we know, well, Aquarius's key is now. And that's another thing to mention. It's like we haven't even figured out exactly, are we gonna get full locked in with the key? Are we gonna kind of just like get that fully settled? I think it's waiting for whenever we get Aquarius and Mercphobia, and like, hey, kind of sad. I don't know. I imagine like we're gonna have some form of full recognition of that, but for the most part, I would say like you look at them and it's like none of them are really that crazy in the scope of things. They're like powerful wizards when you look at them at the time of, but then it's like, okay, you get to the Seven Kin, and I think those are more appropriate to compare the two realistically, because it's not by title, it's more of like by where they kind of originate from, because both Faris and Hades have this whole thing with the abyss of magic. Hades calls it the abyss of magic. Faris calls it the abyss of black magic. And from that, I think that is part of what results in their minions, you know, their direct minions and what their abilities are. You have the members of the Seven Kin, they all have lost magic. And that is just like, you know, really crazy, overpowered magic that was dangerous to use because of it, you know, it was really way more powerful in general compared to like majority of magics, but it also was really dangerous for the user because of how all these taboos and side effects that would, you know, bring consequences for just general usage or by exceeding things that it should restrict you from. And when you compare it to Faris taught black magic to her Aetherius. And then it's like, okay, well, what Aetherius right there? You look at Xerath's Aetherius used curses, whereas a lot of Xerath's followers used black magic. So when you look at the idea, it's like you have all of these different components, and that's something I'm going to have to do it for another video at some point, is you look at all these different variations in traits. So you have humans using black magic, you have humans using lost magic, and you have demons using curses, but you also have demons using black magic. Doesn't seem to be like a direct, like, side-by-side, full direct explanation. It seems to be something that we're going into, but we don't have it in full right now, because Bird talked about that as they are both black wizards and they are Aetherius, so they are artificial demons. And I'm guessing that these two aligning just does something different for them, because so far I think Faris, from what I've seen, I don't think that she is a follower of Xerath. I think she's specifically a follower of black magic, but like looks into and acknowledges and respects Xerath's contributions and teachings, because obviously Xerath mastered black magic. Like, she would be trying to be essentially take Xerath's teachings and usher it into the new age, because that's something that Xerath wasn't trying to do. Xerath's whole grasp on black magic was just a result of his level of genius with magic and his immortality, his level of reach, everything that he just had going on for him resulted to where he's at. But he wasn't trying to climb evolve it, essentially. He wanted to get it to where it was working for him. Whereas Faris seems to be getting to essentially what Hades wanted, was to bring the world back into where it was with the great world of magic. Whereas Faris is like, thinks about it, it's like, instead she wants to change the world into a new style, like essentially I would assume of that, but with black magic, which is again really interesting. It's just like one of the things that, and I've said it a couple times in this video, I got to do it for a video itself. One of the things Mishima I think really is good at is when he takes characters having and being in similar areas and takes them in completely different and severing directions, because it expands the scope of what it is that they have at their foundation. So again, black magic, stuff with like living magic, everything in these ideologies these characters have that I think makes them really stand out when you look at them. Because that was one of the things with Zero. It's like Zero as a character, it's like he didn't really have anything when you looked at everybody that was adjacent to him in like main arc bosses, Battle Alliance guild masters and everything like that. He just was somebody that he was just a surprise villain that was like really fun and really cool, and he just was an absolute berserker while he was at, and now he came back and he's like becoming better. So it's like, okay, well, what exactly is the difference of it? Is it like it stabilizes it and it makes it so he's able to be more honed when he's like this? Because like maybe because something that we know about is with black magic, it corrupts you. It slowly will corrupt you. We don't know exactly if each black magic has a differing result for sure, kind of like how lost magic will have different results from breaking taboo. But black magic seems to just be a universal. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head if there's any specifically that do anything different outside of like this, if I do this wrong I die or something. But it's like, it just seems that black magic is a corrupting thing, because one of the things Faris and Zero talked about was Zero said he took in so much magic from Nirvana that it made him into a demon. So it's like it affects you enough. It's like a break point. It's in a way that I would imagine similar to how Kyoka's whole strengthening ability works, to where if you say you had black magic and you weren't strong enough and weren't capable enough to take on the like backlash effect, you would become kind of like how Faris has these fodder minions that are just like these buffed humans that have like shadow faces. You'd be something like that. Whereas if it worked, you would become more you'd be someone like Zero, where you gain like this almost evil takeover. Because I think that's the same thing what happened with Faris. Because I don't think Faris's skin is because she is like of that race, just because the two other Farises clearly have a very light skin. Like they're clearly whatever the fairy tale equivalent of pitched whites. Like they have white hair, white skin, and like light blue eyes. They're literally snow. But Faris has dark skin. And one thing we know about Brain is that from Midnight now is that he became Midnight. Midnight said that he became Zero at some point. So because he said what was the exact wording? He's like he's way more powerful than when he became Zero. So I'm guessing that it was like Brain, once he got into black magic enough, it created Zero. That's why he had to have the links on it. But that's also why he had the dark skin. But whenever that came off and he became Zero, it was like a personality switch. But it was in a way that was like Brain buffed with black magic was not more powerful than Zero's personality and his innate kind of existence in it. But after getting like the full Aetherius buff and whatnot, it's essentially now Zero is in charge, but Zero has all the links on it. And I'm still wondering if it's like it's gonna go away and maybe he becomes Brain. And it's like the question then at that point, it's like, is he gonna become Brain with light skin or dark skin? Because I kind of like the idea that he becomes Brain with light skin. Like it's like he took over his body again, but he's mastered his black magic and whatnot. And at that point it's like, okay, well, Zero at this point is not as powerful as like black magic mastered Zero, but this is like just with the things off, like I'm messing with my keyboard, with the whole lines off. But then when they use their Aetherius, they fuse together and they become, the Zero and Brain both have the dark skin and all that crazy white hair, and they become like this cool, weird two-headed monster-like creation. I still would love to see something like that where it's like they just have a weird complication of like the weird ways of explaining about fighting them, because I think that one thing that'd be really cool with Zero and Brain is if the whole idea of the two people in one body thing was really played with a lot as an Aetherius. Like that aspect of their character was amplified, because I wouldn't be mad if it's just like Zero, like the lines go off, he's still Zero, but it's like he gains full power as a space and then he eventually goes to Aetherius form and it's just Zero, there's no Brain involved. I wouldn't be mad about that, but I love the idea of it's like now Brain is the base, but he has to have these in charge. Because of that, he has to have these link. I'm trying to remember the whole link seals. I'm trying to remember exactly what that magic is called. It's pissing me off, but has that on. It goes away. Now it's switched with Brain, but Brain is like cosmetically the opposite, but it all comes together with Aetherius. It's something with them that I want to see exactly the results of a lot of the new information that we've had, because that was something I thought we were going to get with Gray, but I think with Mishima not wanting to turn Gray down that route in full in Alvarez, but then it's like in concept of the long run, it's like, no, he does it more so in here where he's going to show more with black magic and give us way more information, because we've got a lot of stuff in expansion of 100 Years Quest. Like we got stuff just showing stuff like, oh, the dragon attribute, like outright, okay, the dragon and attribute is something in additional on top of magic, thank you, Wendy. You have, okay, we're getting stuff like spirit arts, we're getting stuff like alchemy now involved, but now we're getting like an expansion of black magic. And I feel like with an expansion of black magic, you have to look into stuff with like Gray, you look into stuff like Natsu, because both of them have to do with black magic right now, because Natsu, all of Natsu's Etheria stuff right there, black magic, and everything with Gray's Devil Slayer magic has to do with black magic. We know that as well. So with that, there's a lot in this arc, and there's a lot of current events that I think are just interesting in what's in waiting, because not everybody has like, characters have ongoing events that are relevant, like obviously Urza and Wed, but it's not as tied to really like a lot of the traits when you look at it of like the characters that are involved, especially the big characters, but also the whole literal topic of the arc. Humans versus dragons versus black magic. So when you look at that, it's like, okay, well, one, Natsu is all three of those things, and Gray is two of those things. So what exactly is going to be the case for that? And then obviously Aetherius and Gray, I feel like they have to fight at some point. So I don't know, I just wanted to ramble a little bit, kind of like talk about exactly what's going on with this big mass events of black magic and dragons and everything that kind of could come out of it, and exactly where things are kind of shifting. There's a lot of what I like to kind of, again, I don't know, just like use this like chatter material where it's like, with Gray and Viernes, what exactly is going on with that? Like, why show us like one page of Gray being like, hey, I'm not a dragon slayer, and then we leave, and it's like, okay, well, we have Gray literally in front of Viernes. It's not like Gray is looking over from a distance and he's trying to figure out a plan. He's directly in front of him. So it's like, okay, well, what's going to happen? I still think Viernes is going to talk to him, but I don't know. Other than that, comment below and like your thoughts about like what do you think is going to happen with this big mess of like black magic and like the characters involved with like Gray and Natsu. What do you think is going to be the point of showing stuff like, oh yeah, if you get enough weird black magic interactions, you become a demon, like full explanation. Like, is that going to happen again now to Gray? Is it that going to be partly irrelevant? Is that going to be used for any specific characters? I think there's a lot of stuff that just like, I don't think when characters specifically just give world building information, it's just for the sake of just adding it in. You always have to keep in mind when characters say stuff like that in specific, you think it's like, okay, is that world building, or is that world building or it's like world building, but it's in disguise. If you take off the mask of what you're supposed to immediately pay attention to, it's foreshadowing, kind of thing. Is that going to kind of say like Gray is going to push his his devil, I wish we'd get a name for it, devil force or whatever, if we're ever going to name for him, if we're ever going to get a progression of that where he's going to essentially become demonic. I think that like stuff that Mishima could do with the like closing events of 100 Years Quest could set up a really good continuation, assuming that we're going to get one. I know they've talked about it and he's responded and talked about it, because like there's stuff that I would really like, that it's like if Ignia, obviously I don't think he's going to succeed in burning the world down, but you have succeed with the dragons, you have the dragons out, but it's like if you have stuff like Gray becomes partly like permanently demonic, not like he's a demon man now, but like he has like a like, maybe, I don't know, a quarter. He's a quarter demon or something, a third demon. And then whenever Julie and him have a kid, this kid has a shard, essentially a fraction of demon DNA, and that plays into their, his plot. I think that would be cool. Like, what exactly do you do with that? I think that'd be really interesting. But other than that, this was just like a combined ramble. So tell me your thoughts about like this situation. Like, what do you think is the point of all this new expansion on black magic? Because we had all the alchemy stuff, but the alchemy stuff was to lead into this, and I wonder like more about like stuff like spirit arts and what we're gonna find out with that. Is that gonna lead into stuff like, oh, why Lekka maybe uses spirit arts and that's why his fire is different? I don't know. Other than that, comment below, thumbs up the video, friend, like button, subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.